Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and joining me now also is Vox. Vox, how are you?
Exhausted.
I'd like to point out this is a news and education program, and we took a break. We had said that, look, we think the results really aren't going to change much, and Divine Disbelief, which is not a news program, is still going. They've been 18 hours straight. I went over there. They had a guest. His eyes were literally rolling in the back of his head on one. He said, "I'm fine. Oh, I'm just checking Twitter." Yeah, you're checking Twitter from behind your eyelids.
Yeah.
A nice trick.
When we shut the feed down here, I actually got a ping. Hey, just saw you got off at In Time. Can you come and give us some analysis of what's going on? Well, that turned into 6.5 hours.
Oh dear Lord. Well, and truth be told, I was tempted. Well, when I said we'll go another 2 hours, and then we'll call it a night. And then it looked like Georgia wasn't going to. And they still haven't called it, but I was like, okay, it didn't look like anything was really going to change. So I said, let's go. And on some level, nothing has changed. On some level, a lot's changed. So for our new audience, before we really get into it, let's uh, and I'll drop the link there. Why does the map keep dropping? I clearly have a connection problem. I'm aware of one of them, which is, of course, my household serves now as a home office for two people, and so there's a lot of upstream bandwidth as meetings are going on. So I may have connection issues. But for people who don't know, and I think we're going to do kind of a rundown of where we stand and what the numbers are looking like right now. I you have to be very careful with any kind of futures prediction. Wow, that map is really having issues. You have to be careful. It's possessed. I didn't even touch anything. You have to be very careful with futures predictions because um, they vary widely. And one of the things that I've always said, the best argument I've ever heard for the notion that Hillary Clinton may have done some illegal things in the Whitewater. And you know what? I think Hillary Clinton is much maligned, and she's the most vetted candidate in the history of the human race. And they still couldn't come up with anything. But I found only one reasonably compelling argument with her on Whitewater, which is she made a good deal of money in the futures markets, and that's really hard to do. So yeah, either there's shenanigans or she's holy smoke. But so I'm always cautious with the futures markets, but I like them for one reason, which is because the people who do make money at it, and the ones who engage at it, are the ones who study this stuff more than I do. And if you want to take a look at what, and it can't, I mean, the stock market today is, I think, artificially inflated. We've pumped in several $trillions into the economy, and I think that's actually mostly gone to the stock market to keep it up, in part so people don't panic, and in part because Trump wants to get reelected. So if you pump $1 trillion into businesses that are on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, what you're going to get is a stock market that does not accurately reflect what's going on in the economy as a result of COVID. The economy is tanking because of COVID, period. End of discussion. The stock market hasn't batted an eyelash. And that's because how much does it cost to do that? $1 trillion. We know because that's how much was spent. At any rate, and I'll send I'll send out a couple of things. So at any rate, but I like the futures markets because they don't tell me what's going to happen. It's a market. It's a trading index. They're not psychic, but it does tell me what people who study this a lot more than me, who are willing to put money on it, are saying is going to happen. And I think that's an important. Important. It's not important. It's a nice bellwether to have, so long as you're aware that it's just that kind of bellwether. When we went to sleep last night, Vegas had him down at and again, so Vegas, when they ballpark these things, they have to get the odds right, or else they lose money. The house loses money. The house doesn't like to lose money, so they take. There's always a margin, so that the house is comfortably not going to lose money whichever way it goes over time. But it's still Vegas had Biden down at a 33% chance to win. He is now, last I checked, Biden is up at an 86% chance to win. That's where he was this. And again, these are a bunch of people who take a look at this, make a living at this. This is what they say it is. Take it with a grain of salt. But I find it encouraging. And I just finally understood what happened. I'll explain what happened. Okay. I hate it when I do this. Hold on a sec. So, as anybody who's been watching the stream knows, I am phenomenally dyslexic, and I rely very heavily on voice dictation. I try to keep an eye on it and not let it do so, but sometimes there are people who know me now who speak voice dictation, so they're like, "Oh Jesus, you wouldn't believe what happened last night. I had an apocalypse asteroid that melted in my refrigerator." And they're like, "Okay, I gotta learn to speak Nick and try to figure out what that means." But the other thing is, if I start streaming and I forgot to turn it off, that's the equivalent of hitting keyboard commands, and they all get they all just go straight into the screen, and so it actually starts shutting down screens and things start moving. I was like, "What's?" So I just learned, like, when my computer starts acting really wonky and things are getting disconnected, that maybe I left my voice dictation on, and that is what's happened. So I'm going to send out one more link here in case somebody else wants to join us. Oh, I think he's already got the link. So, but we're good with that. So things have changed. The basic status is roughly where we were last night. I am going to drop Alaska. I'm going to ignore Alaska for a minute because Alaska is not big enough to factor into this calculation, at least right now, in any meaningful way. If I understand where we are correctly, we have 5 states that have not yet reported as of last night. All 5 were leaning towards Biden. The good news is he only has to win 2. If he wins 2, this is over. So 2 out of 5, those are pretty good odds, but they were all leaning Trump. That has now changed, and it appears 3 are leaning Biden. So Vox, could you please fill us in on what has happened and where we are?
Sure, yeah. So I think when we got off, they were all leaning Trump. We were all a little bit dejected. I don't think that we had internalized.
Oh, right. We appeared. So Vox, you have.
Yeah.
Oh,
can you hear me?
And
Hello?
we have. All right, so we appear to have lost Vox, and Vox, we did lose you for a second, and I'm going to bring in. I can now, and we have a special guest. We have Mr. Murica. Mr. Murica is joining us, so here he is.
Here he is,
Mr.
America.
I might be a little robot-y. I'm outside.
All right. So well, I've heard of that before. What is that? I mean, I think that's like what I see through, but I mean, I have this blocked because I don't like. I'm a little scared by whatever's on the other side of that thing that is called
I don't need that
window. But outside, wow, that's something I haven't heard of. That's somewhere I haven't been in a while. All right, so Vox, you were saying.
Okay, so so I don't think that we had quite internalized exactly how big the margin was with the mail-in vote. So I've been watching this. I haven't been to bed yet. I was talking to Chris earlier today while you slept. And what we have seen is a steady...
So wait a minute, was that accusatory? Hold on. Well, while you were getting your beauty sleep, Nick, it's only a biological necessity, but okay, yeah.
But what we saw was a slow, and when I say slow, I mean a painfully slow movement away from Donald Trump in first Wisconsin. So Wisconsin went blue about 1 o'clock, I believe, about 1:30. Wisconsin went blue, and it's been blue ever since. And it's all the result of mail-in ballots there. That's what went blue. We expected the same thing in Michigan. Michigan took a lot longer to get there, but Michigan did eventually get there, and it flipped blue about 2 hours ago. I believe it flipped blue.
Light blue. So we just
light blue.
Michigan hasn't been called, but yeah, okay, yep.
So, all the remaining ballots are basically going to be your mail-in ballots. So everything that you see now will trend Biden and not Trump. And of course, Georgia is still leaning Biden. So as it stands right now, I am comfortable. I was not comfortable at 1 o'clock, but I personally am comfortable in projecting that Joe Biden will be the 46th president of the United States of America.
All right. So let me make a distinction, and you made it, but I want to be extra clear on it, because on occasion I speak as a Nick Soutter, and on occasion I speak as the owner and operator of In Time, and I say this is what In Time is projecting. So that is your personal projection. I hope you're right. The show itself, In Time, is not making that projection, but I'm glad that you are, and you feel comfortable. Like I certainly do too. Like sometimes I'll say this is what I think. In Time itself has made a number of when I gotta stop doing callbacks to shit nobody cares about, because it was a while ago. But when we had on a anti-aircraft specialist from the Navy to discuss how one might determine whether or not the Ukrainian airplane was shot down by Iran in a friendly fire incident, and about 24 hours before anybody called it, we said, we here on In Time, our official position is that it was a friendly fire incident. So we do make calls. But so we'll leave that one to I think Vox, and I'm cautiously optimistic, certainly myself, but I think In Time isn't quite ready to call it yet. But I'm very glad that Vox is that optimistic. So we have here the map, and I'd like to talk about what we're looking for in the numbers. The other quick things, we've had two that I'm aware of, state legislators that are trans state legislators that have been elected in their states. We will cover that briefly. Also, Louisiana has passed an amendment saying that there is, in fact, no constitutional right to an abortion. Oregon has passed a measure decriminalizing all drugs in Oregon, and there are a few other things that we are catching up with right now. So let me bring up the map, and then the other biggie. We talked about this a lot last night, and we will bring this up again in a little bit. There's really two very critical things happening at this moment, and it's easy to lose sight of one for the other. The first is, of course, the presidential election. The second is the Senate. If the Democrats can take the Senate, and if they get the White House, this represents the ability to start to roll back what they view as all of the damage done by Trump. It starts with now a basically unstoppable ability to undo what I believe is by definition the packing of the Supreme Court where we are now. The Supreme Court is not balanced. It has been packed. It wouldn't have been packed, I think, but for the shenanigans pulled with Merrick Garland, Obama's nomination, which was, I think, really, there's no other word to call it. His nomination was stolen. He had the constitutional right, and he was not heard. So I think the Dems are going to try. One of the first priorities they have, I think, is going to be to expand the U.S. Supreme Court from 9 members to 11 members. This is obviously going to be controversial. They can and almost certainly will succeed if they both have the Senate and the presidency. So if they have the Senate and the presidency, that doesn't give them the Supreme Court, but that does empower them to take the Supreme Court from the Republican column. So this would be big. Right now, the government is mostly controlled by the Republicans, the conservatives. They have the White House. They have the Senate. They do not have the House. That is the only thing that has been slowing them down. But they now very solidly also have the Supreme Court. All of that could be undone reasonably quickly if Biden wins and if the Senate flips. Right now, the Senate is at 47-47. There are, last I heard, 2 seats, which will have to go to a runoff in January. So depending on where the remaining seats, there are 6 outstanding races that we need to hear from. 2 will not be decided until January. So we're going to have to see where the remaining ones stand. But the Senate is very, very tight, and control of the Senate will have a profound impact on the next 4 years. Well, 2 years at a minimum, probably 4 years. There's the midterms, of course, but we'll get to that. Biden is ahead, as you can see by this map. There are 3 states in his column that are not yet called, but leaning towards him. 3 towards Trump. And there are, and I've had this corrected, of course, which is there are a couple of other states I have been ignoring them, not because they're insignificant, even though they're insignificant. That's just not why I'm ignoring them. I'm ignoring. Oh, come on, that was funny. I'm ignoring them because at this point, they are not going to factor into this. Enough electoral votes are already in. The race is tight enough. What we're looking at is, of these 5 states that are here, if Biden wins any 2, he is the next president of the United States. He is ahead in 3, and it's possible the other 3 haven't been called. The other thing I keep trying to remind people, and I did manage to drop in by divine disbelief earlier, and wow, they are pretty. I am impressed, but I was put to shame a little bit, honestly. I was like, they're like, so Nick, your stream was, we loved your show. Your stream was going great, and then it stopped. What happened? I was just like, sleep. Like, oh, sorry. We over here we say sleep is for the weak, but you run your show the way you like. It's like, ouch. So although I'll point out, there hasn't been any actual official changes. So everything, the map still is officially the same way. So Vox, anyways, that was sort of my rundown. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, that sounds right. I'll pick up where you left off on the Senate for a moment. So yes, it appears to me that based on the way that the votes are going in Georgia, now we already know that 1 is going to go to a runoff, but it's looking like, at first it wasn't looking like it, but it does look like the Ossoff race also may go to a runoff as well, and that will occur if neither candidate gets at least 50% of the vote. So if you're watching Georgia and you're watching the Senate as those votes roll in, you're going to want to see either Ossoff above 50 or the Republican candidate, and I can't quite remember his name right now, below 50%, which will trigger that runoff. So those are the 2 races in Georgia. The other 2 races to watch in the Senate, because the Senate has tightened. A couple races that Democrats had hoped to win, they did not. For instance, Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst was able to fend off her challenger and retain her seat. Mark Kelly did win his challenge in Arizona. So we are watching Tom Tillis and Cal Cunningham. That race has not been called yet. And we are watching the senatorial race in Maine with Susan Collins. Both of these races have the Republican senator ahead as of right now. And North Carolina, of the states left that have not been called, is the only state that has Donald Trump most likely to win it. So it is very likely that the Republicans may retain control of the Senate. But as you said, it's 47-47 right now. So they only need 3 because the vice president becomes the split vote if there is a tie in the Senate. As to the remaining states, like I said, I don't think that we had quite really compartmentalized in our head the sheer magnitude of Biden votes that were left in these mail-in ballots. In some of these counties, mail-in ballots have gone to Joe Biden by as much as 83%.
Jesus.
And of course, at this point in time, there are almost no election day votes left to count. Like, people who showed up to the polls on election day, their votes have been counted. The only thing that is left to count is your mail-ins, your absentees, your provisionals, and those are so heavily skewed Biden, which is why no one is scared right now about Pennsylvania, which is why we're confident in Georgia, which is why we're confident in Wisconsin. Now, something about Wisconsin that we want to pay attention to if you are pulling for Joe Biden. Wisconsin state law says that if a candidate wins by less than 1%, a recall can be requested. And if the margin is less than a half a percentage point, a recount is automatically triggered. Now, right now, as far as I know, Wisconsin, Joe Biden is leading Wisconsin by about 0.6%, which is within the margin of Donald Trump's campaign being able to request a recount, which of course they would absolutely do as soon as they are eligible to do in Wisconsin. Now, I don't believe that changes the result of the Wisconsin election, but it makes this election drag out longer and, of course, puts the Supreme Court in play. So that is a big concern. So we're going to want to see that number get above 1%. As far as Michigan goes, I expect Michigan to clear any kind of recount margin as these votes are coming in. There's still a lot of votes left to count in Michigan. There's still a lot of votes left to count in Pennsylvania. So we're going to see an increase in the number of votes as they roll in. Like I said, last night they were trickling in. Maybe once an hour we get an update of 100, 200 votes, which is just grating. But people.
Oh! You're roboting a bit.
Turn blue.
Okay, you've roboted.
I do apologize.
That's all right. So I do want to. So let me hit a couple of quick things while we're discussing that, because there's a few other things. So one of the things that you said, and I think this is. So there's sort of one of the most basic rules in an election is if you've lost, but there is a possibility of a recount because the narrow was the vote was close enough, you do a recount. You force a recount in every single case. If you can do a recount and you were behind, you do a recount. And the reason is there's nothing to lose. There's the worst case scenario, you still lost. So in every case where Trump is behind and they declare it for Biden, and but it's close enough that he can request a recount, he will. Period. End of discussion. Same is true for Biden. There is no reason not to, and every reason to do it. So we've already heard that there will be at least one state that's going to do a recount. Trump has, and I know this is going to shock everybody, Trump has declared himself the winner. So, and I would like to discuss that. So I guess he appeared at the White House at 2 a.m. and has, this had happened, and I should have reported on it last night, but we were, he does stuff like this so often that it's hard to think of it as a big story, but this is really unprecedented, which is that Trump, from the White House, said at 2 o'clock yesterday that he was the winner, and he demanded that the vote counting stop. The President of the United States demanded that the states in this union stop counting the votes. We've been talking about what this administration has done and the undermining of American values and the American institutions. But the fact that the president of a democratic country could say that I'm ahead now, so let's stop counting. Holy fucking shit. Excuse me. But wow. So the New York Times has done a op-ed on this, and quote, speaking with a mix of defiance, anger, and wonder that the election had not yet been called in his favor, the president recounted his standing in an array of battleground states before falsely declaring, frankly, we did win this election. No news organization declared a winner between Trump and Biden, and a number of closely contested states, and still still has millions of mail-in ballots to count. Trump has said, without offering any explanation, we will be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. Last night, 2 p.m. No elected leader has the right to unilaterally order votes to stop being counted, and Mr. Trump's middle-of-the-night proclamation amounted to a reckless attempt to hijack the electoral process as the results in key battleground states were still not final, something without precedent in American politics. The president contradicted himself about the vote counting as he claimed that he was gaining strength in Arizona, where votes cast on election day were breaking in his favor, but where mail-in ballots favored Mr. Biden, the Democratic nominee. Mr. Trump spoke at times from a teleprompter, but he veered off his prepared remarks to make unfounded claims of voter fraud. We don't want them to find any more ballots at 4 in the morning.
We did.
Well, we did, but I think his implication, of course, is that he doesn't. That we're just going to find a whole bunch of fake ballots. So he is doing what he said he would do, which is he is questioning the integrity of the election right now. And we discussed this last night. I'm kind of glad that this went on as long as it did, because it's giving everybody a chance to, believe it or not, to calm down. If we had had a clear winner within 4 hours of the election, I think there'd have been rioting from one side or the other. There would have been people taking to the streets. Now each side has a chance to decompress, to reflect, and to take a look at this. And it adds legitimacy to the process because it's taking this long. There's also an old saying: you can have, election. You want elections to be fast, accurate, and fast, accurate, and easy. Jesus, I'm still tired. Fast, accurate, and easy. You can have two. Sorry. It's fast, accurate, and cheap. Those are the three things you want: fast, accurate, cheap. You can only have two. Pick. So I think Trump would go for cheap and fast. At any rate, so I'm glad
encouraged.
Yes.
I was encouraged last night by when Trump made those comments, by the repudiation of those comments, not by the Biden campaign, but by those within Republican circles, including talking head Ben Shapiro, who said, you can't do this. Stop. Chris Wallace came out and condemned the president's comments. Chris Christie came out and condemned the president's comments. And of course, Chris Christie is part of Donald Trump's inner circle. So it is good to see that outside of Donald Trump, there are people who recognize that we have to maintain the integrity of our elections and that all legal votes can and will be counted.
Well, and I think and Chris Christie's an interesting one, because I think Chris Christie was very much in the inner circle and wanting to get a little closer into the inner circle. And once he got COVID, his views changed. I think he's taking COVID a lot more seriously, and he's realizing there was a catastrophic failure on Trump's part not to. And I think now he's sort of, I think the blinds have been lifted over his eyes. He's starting to realize this is serious. So the one of the other things that I want to quickly, a couple of things that we've had. Now, we discussed this last night. In most states, they don't actually count the absentee ballots at all, unless. And there are some states that do, and they just start right away. But in most, they actually don't, unless the margin is close enough that the absentee ballots matter. And there's something that I find untoward about that. I'm not a huge fan. It's like shouldn't you count every vote? But if the difference between the two candidates is 10 million, and there's only 1 million absentee ballots, you can count all the absentee ballots you want. It's not going to change anything. So many states have and a few. I didn't realize. I guess Georgia does count them all. They just do, but plenty of states don't, unless. So all of those are now being triggered, and I think you're right. A lot of the projections last night didn't take absentee ballots into account. It's been close enough that you're going to take them into account, and it seems to me, I do think one of the candidates did go out and say nobody should vote by mail. And I think that now that the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots matter, it's turning out that maybe more people listened to that man than he would have liked, but they were all on his side. So we'll see how that turns out. But it's going to be. I'm sorry. It's going to be a little Schadenfreude if I'm going to have a little glee if it turns out that the biggest difference, what's going to cost him the election, is the people who could have voted by mail for Trump and didn't because he told them not to, which is almost what happened to Bachmann. That was the. Wow. So Fulton County, Georgia's Fulton County is in full swing on counting those ballots. A top Biden advisor has said that he is confident they are going to win. Pennsylvania has issued a rather stern rebuke of Trump at this point, saying that his claims of fraud are unfounded and purely partisan. Michigan has hit the highest turn. We have highest turnouts all over now. And Pennsylvania, by the way, is saying that they are not sure they will have results in today, which is actually, I think, what you said yesterday.
Yes.
Was that we may need to wait, but Pennsylvania is reassuring people that this is the process. This is what we're supposed to be doing, and we are going to do it right.
Pennsylvania was Pennsylvania was the tipping point in most people's aggregate maps, including my own. And I think that we were just not banking on other states being as fast, right? I think we were expecting Pennsylvania to be the faster of the states that didn't start counting until election day. It turned out that Wisconsin was faster, and so when Wisconsin and Michigan went blue, Pennsylvania no longer became the tipping state. Now, of course, you want to win Pennsylvania, you want a repudiation of the Trump era of politics. You cannot do that with 270 electoral votes, and of course, winning by 270 electoral votes. I mean, that's just scary, right? I mean, it is. What are we going to do? Have a recount in the Nebraska second? So we want to win by these margins, but I think Pennsylvania has done a fantastic job. There has been a concerted effort to disenfranchise voters in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has, by and large, not allowed it to happen. And Pennsylvania is going to be the buffer because of the possibility of recount Wisconsin. We want that buffer. We want Georgia. We want Pennsylvania to push us over that edge and say, recount if you want. Go ahead. We got Pennsylvania. We got Georgia. We got it in the bag.
Hold on. Sorry, I am. Let's okay, hold on a sec. Can you explain to me how California's vote was for Biden exactly 8 p.m. in 1 second, where voters even counted? Oh yeah, we'll do that one in a second. So we discussed that last night. We knew that was going to happen. We'll get to that in a second. That's a fair question, Laura C. But the other thing. So the Trump campaign has said it will be requesting a recount in Wisconsin. We have let's see. There is now an unnamed source from inside the Trump campaign that has said, quote, "We are clearly in a corner here," which suggests to me that there is a number of people who in the Trump campaign are starting to come to grips with the fact that this is not looking good for them. So, Vox, we have a question. Laura C., can you explain to me how California vote was for Biden last night at exactly 8 p.m. and 1 second? Were our votes even counted? Now, we had predicted that would happen last night. We were counting on it. There is a reason why. Would you care to explain that for us?
Bastions, if you will, that we just know are going to go a particular way. And California is one of them. California is going to end up being about 70-30 Democrat, Republican. And we know this because of past elections. So when you have a state, much like Louisiana or Alabama, where we just know Donald Trump is going to win, as soon as the polls close, we can call these states for these candidates without any being tabulated, because we already know ahead of time the result. There's no magic there. These aren't states where anything is ever going to happen that surprises us. And so we have a list of states that candidates will just win. So for Joe Biden, that is California, that is Washington, that is Oregon, that is New York, that is Connecticut, New Hampshire, Delaware, Vermont, Rhode Island. For Donald Trump, it is North and South Dakota, it is Montana, it is Idaho, it is Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Nebraska. These are states that will, West Virginia, Kentucky. These are just states that are automatically going to be go to the candidate, because the margin of victory is going to be in the 30 to 40 percentile range, and nothing is going to change that. So that's why those are called. And yes, your votes are being counted. Let me rest assure you, in California, your votes are absolutely being counted. It's just that we already know the outcome of those states. But the reason that people often think in these states that there's no reason to vote, there is absolutely every reason to go to vote in these states. And I'll tell you why. California did not approve the rent cap ballot initiative, which would have brought a huge amount of relief to the workers of California by granting counties the ability to rent cap in some of these high rent districts that are gentrifying people out of their homes. And that is why it is still important to vote in these elections, because it's not just the person on the top, it's the people on the bottom. It's your school boards, it's your sheriff, it's your district attorney, and it is ballot initiatives where Oregon has decriminalized drugs, New Jersey has legalized recreational marijuana. These are things that you get to vote for. So
that's an excellent point. So thank you, Vox. I think it's often a good idea to sort of hear this from two different perspectives. So I'm just gonna say everything Vox just said. From I think Vox goes from the bottom up, which is perfect. I go from the top down. So in reality, there hasn't been a single vote cast for the president of the United States. Not a single one. The people who vote for president are called electors in the Electoral College. Those are the ones who vote for president, and they have not yet voted. What we're really discussing is who's going to get electors and so on. So we get into huge pedantic stuff. But the reason I bring that up is because those electors are assigned by the states, and they're assigned usually based on the numbers that we're fighting over now and the votes that you cast in your state. You said, I want this person for president. It goes to the state, and then the state assigns electors, and then eventually they vote. It gets certified by the Senate, and then we have a president. That's the process. It's a long process. We've covered it before. We have videos on it. I probably should have linked to those videos, but we've covered exactly what that process is. But realistically speaking, actually technically nobody has voted for president. They've indicated their preference to notify their state, so their state can send out the electors and do all that other good stuff. Now, here's why that matters. What we are looking at here isn't a map of what's actually happening in terms of a president winning or losing. It is a map of projections based on what we know. And there's a threshold for when we say, okay, this is how this state is going to fall. 95% of the time they're right. Every now and then one gets flipped. But we can't even say that this map is 100% accurate. It's pretty accurate, I think, and especially after 2000, people work a lot harder on getting these things accurate. But the votes haven't all been counted. This is just based on how the mathematics work. What we can say we're really extraordinarily confident of how these states are going to turn out, and then we've got lighter colors for the ones that we don't have. New York, you have never met a person who thinks that New York was going to vote for Trump. You haven't met one. If you have, they were in a place called Bellevue or something like that. That was their address. I mean, it was nobody ever thought New York was going to go for Trump. Now, since New York assigns all of their delegates, all of their votes, not based on how people voted in the state, but based on who wins the popular. Because of that, it doesn't matter how much Biden wins by. If he wins, he gets all their delegates. The entire state is blue. Now, you still need those votes for, just as Vox said, there are other ballot measures. There's loads of stuff to vote for. And sometimes people say, well, I'm in New York, so my vote doesn't matter. Well, Biden's going to win New York no matter. No, vote. Go out and vote. That's that's why we don't like to talk about it quite that way, because it disincentivizes people from voting. Now, one thing is, it is illegal to call a state before the ballots close. You can't do it. It doesn't matter if we know a state is going to go for a certain person. Doesn't matter. It's illegal to call it until the polls close, because otherwise you're actually influencing the elections. It's a form of election tampering. So everybody knows that California is going to be won by Biden. Period. End of discussion. But they can't put it up there, and they can't call it until the polls close. Polls close at 8. So at 8:01, nobody cares. Nobody's counted. It's up. But we know that it's a foregone conclusion, and the ones that aren't are the ones we keep arguing about. So New York was a foregone conclusion. It was a foregone conclusion 6 months ago. But so there you go. So Laura C., $5. Thank you. That was a very good question, and we really appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. And I'm glad it's a common question. It's a very good one, and it does for people who this just gets mired in so much nuance and so many details. But that was a one well worth spending the time on. So thank you for the question, and thank you very much.
I think we go into this just a little bit further, actually, because I like the split here, where you're kind of like the top down, I'm like the kind of bottom up. We spend so much effort talking about the president that we don't realize that 90% of the politics that matters, 90% of the things that affect our daily lives, are those non-partisan or bottom partisan races. Your school pool, where your kids go to grade school, who's determining the money, how the money is going to be spent in your county for the education that your kids are getting. Who is going to be your sheriff? Who's determining what laws to enforce and what's not? Who is going to be your district attorney that is going to determine whether or not to bring up charges against people? Who is working your water board, your sewers? Things of that. These are extremely important things, and they are the least voted on of all races. Incumbents in these places almost never lose, because nobody knows who is running in these races except for the 5 people that show up to the school meeting. And if you ask someone,
I'm going to interrupt. We have one red senator, Susan Collins, who at least is one of the better ones. But Susan Collins has now won. Susan Collins of Maine has won, defeating her Democratic opponent. She is the senator from Maine, so the board has been updated 47-48 balance of the Senate now. I do apologize. Please continue. I hope I didn't break your. But I think that
not at all. You ask anybody who is the president, most people, Donald Trump. Well, who's your school district representative? I don't know. You got kids? Yeah, I got 3. I love them. Oh, okay. What are they being taught? I don't know. And the lack of disengagement in local politics is just it's the reason that a lot of these places are in the conditions they're in. But we want to either blame it or thank it to the president. As to the Senate race, it was just called. This now means that Joe Biden and the Democrats have to sweep both Georgia senatorial races and win North Carolina, in which Cal Cunningham is behind by 100,000 votes.
Ouch. So I don't know what this is the I've just brought up the Senate map here, and again, this is the sources AP. I apologize, it's pixelated. It should sharpen in a minute, but AP has this filled out, but they haven't filled out any of the. We don't see the one. I mean, it's all white except for they haven't. I don't. This AP. This is the Senate map. I'm just curious if they filled out the House map. Let's see what they've got on the House map. I don't. All right. Okay. I'm going to switch over. This is okay. But at least the presidential one is getting updated. So I'm gonna bring that back down. But
they might have had a glitch because my Senate map on the AP when I left was completely filled out. So they might be updating something there. I'm not sure. There has been so much money spent on this election and so much spent on the Senate for it to basically be the exact same. Doug Jones losing in Alabama, which was expected. Mark Kelly winning in Arizona. So prior to any vote being cast, the Senate was 53 Republican senators, 45 Democratic senators, and 2 independent senators that caucus with the Democrats, making the total count of 47 to 53. As it stands right now, Doug Jones lost his seat and Mark Kelly won, which means that there is a very large possibility that after $1 billion spent, we will have a Senate that is 53-47.
Completely unchanged. Not
completely unchanged.
A single. How much has been spent on so Senate races nationwide, and not a single change in seats.
Senate nationwide, $1 billion have been spent on Senate races for no change. Now the problem. So this is the problem in Georgia that we have, is that and by the way, Cal Cunningham certainly could pull ahead of Tom Tillis, right? It's just not very likely. People don't like to vote in special elections, which is why I hate runoff elections. And people, of course, will say, "Oh, well, runoff elections, third-party candidates, things like that." Look, we are in a two-party country. You want to give me a third-party candidate for your school board? Fine. Give me a socialist. Give me a communist. Give me an anarchist. Fine, whatever. We are a two-party system. I want a Republican and I want a Democrat to vote for the Senate, because people don't vote in special elections. Or let me rephrase that. Democrats do not vote in special elections.
Yeah.
Republicans vote in special elections, which is why the majority of time that we have special elections in toss-up states, they go to Republicans, because Democrats are working class, poor people, and minorities in most of these places. It's hard enough to get them to the poll once every 4 years. To get them to the poll and then get them to the poll again in 2 months is almost too much of an ask.
All right, we have AP is not yet prepared to call Wisconsin. CNN apparently is calling Wisconsin for. Okay, so is that? Did we already know? Because AP had. What was the status of Wisconsin last you checked? Because Wisconsin is now.
Wisconsin was had Joe Biden ahead by roughly 20,000 votes, with above about 0.6. So where's it at now?
CNN is calling Wisconsin for Biden. Biden is at 49.4%. Trump is at 48.8%. There is between them only about 20,000 votes. 20,000 votes between them, and the light appears to have hit. There's 20,000, but Wisconsin is now been projected. Biden has been called. They have 99% of the vote in. Biden is up 21,000, and he is at this point being projected the winner by CNN. He's still light blue on, but I mean, Wisconsin is as you had said last night, it is a absolute must win at this point, and if he's got it, I think that's an excellent sign.
Yeah. It's going to be a bellwether for Michigan.
He needs 2 of 5. He needs 2 of 5. If he wins that one, he now needs 1 of 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
There should be about, by my calculations, about 100,000 votes left, maybe about 80,000 votes left to count in Wisconsin. That number is enough to push him above the recount number where Donald Trump would not be allowed to request a recount. So I'm glad they've called it for him, but we still need to pay attention to him because we want that 0.6 to turn into a 1.1.
Okay, so if there is a 1% difference, that's the bar for a recount. So it has to.
Yeah, well, so 0.9999 is the bar for recount. So anything less than 1%, the candidate that is under the 1% can request a recount. If it is 1% or higher, then there is no capacity to call a recount in Wisconsin. So we want to push that to 1%.
All right. So, and I'm sorry, I'm getting really bad glare coming in on the camera, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. I just turned it off. I can turn it back on again, but I'm trying to cope with the glare and just the way the sun is hitting it. So, we'll leave it. I look like I'm ready for my close up. All right. So, yeah, I was just checking the numbers. The other interesting thing is, I mean, this is close enough. I don't want to tempt fate, so I don't even want to say it. You know, Trump, of course, could still win, but Trump is behind in the popular vote. And I was just like, you know what? If this happens now 3 times, where a Democratic victory is obliterated by the Electoral College, where the country voted for the Democratic candidate, but the Republican one won, which is, by the way, it's a complaint I've heard, and I think there's a very good argument for the fact that the Electoral College does favor Republicans over Democrats for a number of reasons. But if that's 3 in a row, I'm gonna lose my
So yeah, the Electoral College does favor the rural voter, whatever party that is, over the city party voter. And we talked about this yesterday. Why do we have the Electoral College? We have it as an initial check and balance on the industrialized states over the more rural states. There is an initiative called the 270 Initiative, and that is an interstate pact, an interstate agreement amongst various states that they will automatically give their electors to whomever wins the popular vote once enough states have agreed to pass or make the pact law in their state that 270 votes have been reached. I believe it's at about 216, 218 right now. And of course now we're into states that are more conservative, so it's going to be more difficult to get that through. But if we can get that through, then the Electoral College becomes inept, even if it is on the books, because as we have stated earlier in the show, states get to determine how they award electors, and states get to determine how they hold elections. All they have to do is hold elections. That's the only requirement that the Constitution has for states, to hold elections. But the states get to determine how they appropriate the various electors.
So 2 quick things. First of all, I would love from you an explanation as to why can't the president just sit there and say, hey, we're not gonna do this anymore, or Congress, why can't we just say, hey, look, we're not going to do the Electoral College anymore? But before we do that, Trump has now the campaign has now sued to halt vote counting in Michigan. This is, oh my God, this is a democracy, and we're arguing about stopping voting, not increasing or adding it. Dear Lord. So there is now a suit underway by the Trump campaign to halt vote counting in Michigan. These are legit votes. This isn't even like hanging chads. We're going to count votes that were undervotes over. This isn't 2000. This is legit votes. Nobody's contesting. Trump wants them stopped. So That's now going to start up in Michigan. Why can't Congress just say, hey, we're not going to no electoral college?
Well, they could. There'd have to be a constitutional amendment, though.
Okay, so they can't just declare it. They'd have to go through the entire constitutional amendment process, which is huge. I mean, it's a huge. You'd have to get 2/3 of the states on board. They'd actually have to ratify it themselves, and then they'd have to vote and pass a 2/3 vote in the Senate in order to get rid of the college. That almost strikes me as like the original sin of the Constitution. It's like it's in there. You can't. Okay, but at least it would be an end run. It's amazing how much of law is just an end run around bad laws. It's really hard. It's easy to create. It's very easy to create new laws in this country. It's actually very hard to get rid of old ones.
It really, really is. I mean, look, there are laws on the books that you're just like, why is that there, right? And it's just very hard to get rid of them. But the end run around, this is what the 270 initiative is for, right? It's because it's much easier just to say, hey, we're just going to give our votes to whoever wins the popular vote, as opposed to saying we need a constitutional amendment. Now, I would like to see both, right? But basically, with these things, you have to ask people that are out of power to agree, or who are in power to agree to pass a law that would remove them from power. I mean, that's essentially what you're asking, because no Republican is going to win the popular vote ever again. Not based on the trends of this country. The Republican voters are old, they're white, those votes are dying. Democratic voters are younger, the centennials, the millennials, the Gen Z. Those votes are not, the Republicans, unless they got a superstar, they're never going to win the popular vote again. So you have to, I mean, that's basically what the ask is. It's never going to happen.
You roboted out a bit. I am going to say there was and I was going to bring this up. This is just so typical. I love it when politicians really shoot themselves in the foot. Right now, Biden is up in Michigan, 0.9%. That's where he is. It's not a huge lead, but he's got the lead. If they stop right now, he wins Michigan. So Trump's going to sue to stop. All right. Okay. I'm not going to. Yeah. Dear Lord.
Am I going to be roboting for you still?
You're good now.
Okay.
I'll be honest. You haven't roboted once since you've been on. I just like sometimes I was just like, you know what? I don't like what you're disagreeing with. I'm sorry, Box. We can't hear you. What? Box? We're losing. Oh, shoot. She's gone. She may come back.
Well, I am getting ready to. I'm in my car, so I am getting ready to turn onto an exit where I may lose signal. So I am going to go ahead and say that I am going to disconnect, and I will be back available around 5 o'clock. If something major happens, somebody ping me if an asteroid happens or Donald Trump, has a heart attack or something.
It's 2020. The first is very likely. The second ain't gonna happen.
All right. Well, you guys keep the faith.
All right. Thank you, Vox. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to. I just need to update our Discord a bit, and we're going to see. Okay, let me just. I want to make sure that we have everybody for our breaking news. We do. So if everyone could bear with me for 1 second as I update this. All right. So where do we stand? A quick rundown, basically beginning to end. And it looks like we still have. I don't know if Vox. Vox. Oh, there goes Vox. All right. So quick rundown, beginning to end. It was a bit of a wild ride last night. I think I think everybody who is in the Biden camp, and I am in the Biden camp, but I am like many people in the Biden camp, which is, and Vox mentioned this last night. I'm not. Yeah, Biden's going to change the country, man. You know what? He's a good candidate. He's a solid candidate, and working class. I think he's really been a spectacular public servant. He's got his faults, but I think he cares about being a public servant and about making this a better country in a way that certainly I don't think Trump has any interest in. Trump's in this for himself. So Biden's a solid candidate. Now, did I campaign for him? No, I campaigned for Obama. That was I was passionate about him. Okay, nonetheless, I'm in the Biden camp, and so like a lot of people, you know, I think it's very important if at all possible, he's the one I'd like to see win for reasons I've outlined time and time again. So I think everybody was confident, and the odds, again, just going by Vegas odds, the odds were over 66% at the start of the night. Last night in his favor. The odds dropped over the evening to about 33%, and they are now up. I haven't checked them recently. I should check the Vegas odds. Like I said, I've said this before. I'll try to stop covering my ass quite so much on the Vegas odds, but you know what? They're just odds. They're odds by bookies. I think they're interesting, and I think they're a bellwether. They're not gonna. But the Vegas odds that last I saw had Biden now up at about an 80% chance to win. So I think that's good. We have right now. Oh yes, and it looks like all right. It's Wisconsin has now been also called by Associated Press. We've been using the Associated Press map. CNN called Wisconsin for. I apologize for the dog, folks. We'll hopefully we'll get that. CNN called Wisconsin about 10 minutes ago for Biden. The Associated Press has now called it for Biden. That changes things significantly. At this point, there are 4 significant states outstanding. There's actually there really is. There's more than 4 states outstanding, but in terms of the ones that are really going to influence the election, there are 4 outstanding. Biden needs to win 1, and it looks like he's going to be over. So he's actually at 2. Now the math doesn't seem to. There's something. I'm going to double check the math on that, but it looks like he really should only need to win 1, if I'm understanding the math as we've been doing it correctly. 1 out of 4. He is ahead in 2 out of the 4. He is ahead in Nevada, and he is ahead in Michigan. So Biden is now at almost 250. Michigan is 16 electoral votes. So if he wins that, he's actually still, he is going to need 1 more state. It can be a small state, so it's not quite that rosy a picture, but he's gotten 1 more. He is looking at a win in Nevada. If he gets Nevada, and if he gets Michigan, both of which he is ahead in, the Trump campaign has demanded that and sued to stop the counting in Michigan. If it stops right now, Biden wins. He gets that 16 electoral votes. If he then gets Nevada on top of that, it's over. So that's what we're looking at. Yeah, I do think there has to be specific allegations of fraud, and I don't. So we're going to have to do the math on this now. Okay, so that's Wisconsin, which was actually already called. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to break out the calculator. I've got like 20 monitors running, and the one thing I don't have is a calculator. This gets a little math intensive. So I'm going to use now. I'm also curious why the CNN has Biden at 237. So I just have to know which state. Oh, it's because they haven't given him Arizona. All right, so CNN has not called Arizona. We are using Associated Press. Associated Press, because we like real news sources, so CNN was just never really. I can't CNN out of it, but so Biden is at 248 right now, according to the AP. He has 50.2% of the vote. Trump is at 48.2% of the vote. The two states that are leaning right now towards Biden are Nevada and Michigan. They have asked for a stopping of the vote in Michigan, and ostensibly, if it were stopped and if there was no recount that threw things into question, that would give all of Michigan's 16 to Biden. So since he is at 248, that would put him at 264. So again, the magic number is 270. So if he wins Michigan, and Michigan is at this point a must-win, he is ahead. Michigan is, we've got 94% of the vote has been counted in Michigan. He is ahead by, he's increased his margin. Last we looked at Michigan, he was ahead by 20,000 votes. He is now ahead by 38,000 votes in Michigan. All of the votes in Michigan at this point are mail-in ballots, which he has been getting the overwhelming majority of. That's probably actually why they want to stop it. They're aware he's ahead, so they're gonna try to challenge it. If he wins by more than 1%, they can't challenge. Okay, that's the strategy. That's why they're stopping it. So here's what they're doing. This is their strategy. I just got it. Took me a second. I'm still waking up. Right now in Michigan, he is ahead. If they stop, he wins Michigan. But if he wins by less than 1%, they can do a recount and try to win on that recount. And boy, are they going to fight that. They're going to put every penny they've got into Michigan. This is going to be the Florida of 2000. So they have to stop Michigan before the difference between the two exceeds 1%. Once it exceeds 1%, they can't do a recount. And if Michigan is called, okay, so I'm getting corrected here. Wisconsin, not Michigan. I think Michigan is the same. I could be wrong. It is for I don't. So okay, I don't know the recount threshold for Michigan. I thought it was 1%. Some states have an automatic recount too. Some don't. So if anybody can get a clarification for what the threshold is for either requesting or an automatic recount in Michigan, that would be spectacular. But my guess is that's why they're stopping it. They're stopping it because they don't want it to, they want to keep within the margin of a recount. All right, I will try to get to that. I don't have the ability to check that right now. So my suspicion is, and so we'll check this. I could be wrong. I think what they're doing is they're trying to stop the numbers from getting so big that they can't force a recount. So if they stop the counting in Michigan, if they can keep the current ballots out, if what's in is under the bar for being able to do is under that whatever the percentage is, let's assume it's 1%. They're going to try to. So I'll check out Michigan's recount laws in a second. But my working theory is this. My working hypothesis. That's why they want to stop Michigan. They want to stop the hemorrhaging. If it gets too bad, they won't be able to recount it. If it stays under, they can recount it and maybe reclaim it. If he gets Michigan, he is at 264. He will need 6 electoral votes. And at this point, Alaska is less than that, so Alaska isn't going to help him. But every other remaining state is 6 or more. Nevada is leaning towards him. He's ahead in Nevada, but only by 8,000. 8,000 votes in Nevada. That's what it's coming down to. Over 1 million votes cast in Nevada. 1 million votes cast. Biden is ahead by 8,000. So if he gets both Nevada and Michigan, this is over, barring the obvious legal challenges. So, okay, yeah, if Michigan is an automatic recount within a certain margin, that's why they're trying to stop the vote. They want to stop the vote while it is within the margin for an automatic recount. If it exceeds that margin, Michigan gets certified. There's probably nothing they can do. Michigan is a must-win for him, I think, at this point. It's hard to imagine. Michigan has, Pennsylvania is 20. So if he gets 20, that's more than Michigan. But Michigan is, of the remaining ones, well, no, they're all 16 electoral in Georgia, 15 in North Carolina, 20 in Pennsylvania, and 16 in Michigan. So he's currently projected out of 3 of those. He's projected to win. It's light blue in Michigan and Nevada. If he gets both, it's done. Whew. Okay. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be successful in stopping but there is a lot of, and this is what happened in 2000. It's throwing spaghetti against the wall. It's we're going to sue everybody for everything and just see what the courts let us get away with. So I actually am probably going to check and see if this changes the projections in Vegas. I don't actually have. Let's see if I've got the actual current figures. I do not. So I think it's just going to, okay, well, okay. If these have been updated, then, okay, so it's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. I hate it when they use that kind of some of these numbers. I'm not very good at. I know it's going to come as a shock, but I'm not good at reading bookie ledger sheets. So Joe Biden odds at -290, Trump odds at +210. And if I recall, what that sort of means is if you put $100 down on Trump to win, his odds are so poor right now that if you put it down, you would get 210 back. Now his odds were, a couple hours ago, they were actually a little worse. They're now a little better. Everything's fluctuating, so but I don't know how to translate. Who knows how to translate that to a probability? I got no clue. So I was doing a rundown. Sorry, I got distracted. So the last night, it really did look like the odds fell out of favor for Biden. It was close enough that it did go to the absentee ballots, the mail-in ballots in most states, and those started tipping the tide. Most of those have been turning very much towards Biden. Previously, pink states were turned to a light blue, and the net result has been he picked up a number of what have really become must-win states. So at this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There really are still now. There's 5, even with that pickup now, because he's still short enough that we're still looking at five states, and he's going to have to win 2 of them. Actually, that pickup was not as beneficial for him as we had hoped. It was a plus. He needed to win it. So it's a question of how long it's going to take for those results to come in. Now, my hope is, and like I said, there's been a lot of other interesting things that have happened. I think Oregon voting to decriminalize all drugs, it's a bold move. I'm, in general, sort of in favor of that kind of policy. I think it's a mental health issue. I think it's a health issue in general. Not a criminal issue. I can see why they get conflated, because you see a lot of violence around it. But then again, you see a lot of violence around alcohol when you make alcohol illegal. So I am for it. We're going to see where that sort of moves the Overton window. How much is that going to change this country's policy in general toward drugs? Marijuana has been decriminalized, I think, in New Jersey. We have Louisiana saying that there is no constitutional right to an abortion. That is going to be, it sounds like an amendment to their constitution. So there's a lot of other sort of downstream election issues and initiatives that have been worth discussing, and it's just been a little bit of a nail biter since then. The Senate, which the dream for, actually, it's not even a dream really, for the Dems to overcome what they view as the damage caused by the Republicans. In order for that to happen, they have to achieve two goals. They have to win the White House and they have to win the Senate. If they do that, they can make serious inroads against the packing of the Supreme Court by Donald Trump, and they can reverse a lot of the damage that's been done. If they don't take the Senate, most of those probably cannot be done. I don't think any senator, even the more moderate ones, are going to go against the party enough to allow them. And by the way, we've had this discussion before. Should the Dems be allowed to add 2 seats to the Supreme Court? So essentially the problem you have is this. You always have to have an odd number of seats on the Supreme Court to avoid any kind of deadlock. So right now the Supreme Court is at 7. But the Dems are very upset about the loss of Eric Garland, who was supposed to be Obama's pick. He was denied even a hearing on that. Mitch McConnell, in my view, at a minimum, violated the spirit of the Constitution and was really violating his job as the Senate Majority Leader, and stole that. He held back that nomination until Trump could get in, and Trump got that nomination. He's gotten in nominations since then, and what you have ended up with is that move allowed the Republicans to pack the Supreme Court, saying that there is now a very small minority, really, of liberals on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court isn't even really, it's just not balanced anymore. So the idea that nobody has floated officially, but I think everybody's aware the Dems are planning on doing, is to add 2 new seats, expand the court, which the Senate is empowered to do, expand the Supreme Court from 7 to 9. Now, the second you do that, there's 2 vacancies, right? I mean, if you actually, you could, if you wanted to, you could take a 7 member Supreme Court and say, we're going to expand that to 101. And all of a sudden, all of those are vacancies. The seats aren't filled. And according to the U.S. Constitution, vacancies are filled by the current sitting president. So now the sitting president has, and this has been attempted before, never quite that many. Now, if they could get away with it, any party in power, Dems, Republicans, would attempt this every year, and they'd just be like, hey, let's just add a whole bunch of seats and take over the Supreme Court. The reason they don't is because they know there's going to be a tremendous amount of backlash, and they know that people are going to see it as packing. And it was, I want to say Roosevelt, I think, yeah, it was Roosevelt who attempted the same. And Roosevelt, despite being extremely popular and very successful, failed. And it was just, no, we're not going to let you pack the Supreme Court. We're not going to let you. Normally, the way the Supreme Court would be packed is you expand the seats, you fill the seats yourself, packed. He tried it, didn't get away with it. In this case, the Dems, if they win the Senate and if they win the presidency, would probably succeed in getting away with it because there is enough outrage over what happened with Garland to allow them to do this. Now, should this kind of politics be played? I don't know. I normally am kind of against it, but in this case, I'm simply going after what happened with Garland. After a legit, and with Garland, you could sit there and say, well, constitutionally, it was legal. It was probably really not, but then again, constitutionally, they can expand the Supreme Court. The reason Biden would not go for, say, 11. He'd expand from 7 to 9. He's not going to go for 11. He's not going to go for 15. He's not going to do any of that stuff. And the reason is the outrage. People would sit there and say, no, you can't pack the Supreme Court yourself. I think there would be support for him unpacking the Supreme Court, taking a packed 7 to an unpacked 9. That I think he's going to get support for. Taking a packed 7 to a packed 11 in his favor, no. And I don't think he's stupid enough to try. But they will expand the court to 9, and Oh, I'm sorry. I went 7-9. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to forgive me. So it's yeah, from 9 to 11. Okay. I'm I'm tired. Um, three yeah, 3 libs, 6 conservatives. Okay, so it's packed because the number of conservatives double the number of liberals. So I am sorry. Yeah, it's currently 9. I don't know why I was off on 7. I think I was all right. Doesn't matter. So from 9 to 11. Thank you for the correction. So I think, yeah. Anyways, that's why. So the Supreme Court is actually up for grabs right now. If the Democrats get both the Senate and the presidency, I guarantee you they're going to add 2 seats to the Supreme Court. This will unpack the Supreme Court, and the 2 seats would make it a 5-6 balance instead of a 3-6. So it's going to be a much more balanced court. It will still be in favor of the conservatives, but it won't be packed for the conservatives. So right now in the Senate, we have 47 to 48 in favor of the Republicans. The Republicans are up 1 seat in the Senate. There are 2 seats, which at this point we believe are going to go to a runoff election in January. So we won't know those 2 seats. There are enough outstanding seats that the Dems are going to have to win. I think there are 3 then. I guess there are 3 outstanding seats. The Dems, well, they don't have to win all of them, but if they win 1, and then if they win the 2 runoffs, there's a tie. Tie goes to the vice president. So if they've won the White House, they're okay. If they lose the White House, they are going to have to win basically almost all of the remaining Senate seats. So if there are any questions, please hit us up with those in the live chat. I'm also going to quickly go over our calendar for the rest of the month. We've got a couple of interesting shows, and then I'm going to cover some of the other things that have. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. So we have. Yep. All right. Let's see. On. So yeah, there's a lot of Star Trek nerds in and about the orbit of In Time, and I wasn't necessarily going to do an In Time show on Star Trek or any of the. I'd really kind of like to avoid that. That's certainly not everyone's cup of tea. But we do discuss psychology, and I had been asked on. There was a YouTuber called Ethan Prolib, and he was actually a correspondent for this show for a while. He then actually eventually became a co-host on Overtime, and he's had his own show. And he had me on to discuss Star Trek stuff because he liked to do that on his channel. He asked me what my favorite Star Trek episode was, and I froze. Like I couldn't think of it. And then I did remember it was. It's called A Matter of Perspective, and in it. There is the first officer, Commander Riker, is accused of murder. And there are basically 3 witnesses to what happened in this situation. He's one of the witnesses, the wife of the victim and the assistant of the victim. And they all witnessed the same events, but they put very different spins on those events. And whether he's guilty or innocent isn't determined as much by the facts as by, because the facts are almost completely agreed to. I mean, everyone's just like, this happened and this happened and this happened, and then this was said and this was said. But the perspective on those facts. So on Sunday, November 8th at 2 p.m., we're going to have a watch party. We're going to be on the Discord, and we are going to watch A Matter of Perspective from Star Trek: The Next Generation. And then at 3 p.m., we're going to come on to discuss that episode, and we're going to have it's just going to be, a casual hangout, but I think that's going to be fun. Then on Monday, November 16th at 8 p.m., we are going to have our Rorschach episode. Now, this is one I've really been looking forward to. It's actually it's kind of a similar theme. How do our biases and what we project onto other people, how does that influence what we perceive the reality of those people to be, and the people are actually Rorschachs, and that we are more what a reflection of what other people's biases are. And Christopher Maute is going to be on for that, and he explains that one a lot better. I really like. So both of those are up. You can please, if you if you like the show, like and subscribe, and you can also subscribe for notifications to those shows. I am looking forward to that. So, and then we actually do have one. Okay, so Trump will win Maine's 2nd congressional district, getting him 1 electoral vote. So Maine is going to be split. Maine has in fact been called. Now Trump will get, just because Maine splits their delegates, it doesn't all go to whoever wins. They split them. Trump will get 1. Joe Biden will get the state's other 3, and so those numbers should be, in fact, they're already reflected on our board here. So he is up to 248. So Maine has now been called. So Rorschach, and you know what? We've had a lot of people. This has been exhausting. We've had a lot of people in and out. I'd like to thank everybody we've had on, and all the moderators who have been keeping an eye on the live chat, and all of the volunteers, the special moderators who have agreed to just for today come in and join us. A number of the guests that we had hoped to have were unable to make it. It's unfortunate, so we didn't have these things happen. So, but we do really appreciate you guys being there, and I can see you're all still working and keeping things under control. The only way I can do this is if I don't have to worry about the live chat. So I really appreciate everything all of you guys are doing, and thank you very much. So, excuse me. And then on Monday, November 23rd, we have a just sort of an ongoing series. It's going to be for a little bit, but what is music? This is something that's always fascinating. I mean, music is nothing more than rhythms, beats, sounds that in a particular order seem to have a profound impact on the human psyche. Good music can make you, it can put you in a good mood. It can take you out of a bad mood. It can put you in a bad mood. This is nothing but sound. It doesn't even exist really in nature. It's something that we have sort of invented and said we like this and we want to listen to these patterns. What is music? What are we talking about when we talk about music? So we actually had Maute on to discuss that, and he's going to be discussing one of his areas of expertise, music therapy, with us, 8 p.m. Monday, November 23rd. A couple of the shows, but those are the ones that are on the books. And if you want to, you can go get reminders for. But if you like the show, if you like what we do, and if you appreciate the effort that's been put in by a great many people, certainly not just me, please like and subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. Patrons get access to our guests. We have regular patron hangouts, a separate patron section for the Discord, access to sort of behind the scenes stuff. It's a little too tired to shill for it too much. I apologize. I think it's been a long it's been a long day. But at any rate, yes, we asked a bass player. We asked a bass player, a bass. You see, that's how tired I am. I literally said a bass player. We have asked a bass player about music. I don't know what it is with me and bass players. I have a disproportionate number of bass players play some significant role in my life. I'm not sure why that is, but I think I need to reflect on my life decisions. The fact that I have to say that, because he's not the only one. My best man at my wedding was a bass player, Berklee School of Music. The whole I don't know what he's the one who told me that one that I said last night. So how do you know that a singer is at the door? They don't come in on time, and they can't find the right key. So I hope there are no singers out there. I hope there aren't any singer patrons. All right. So, see you later, Ria. Thank you. So Biden is now 22. away from the 150. If you take a look at these numbers, 248 to 214, it does look spectacular for Biden. We are not as optimistic as we could be, and the reason is because if you look at the states remaining, a large number of them with a large number of delegates are pink, so they are leaning towards Trump. The upside that we have so far on most of these is that they're all now down to mail-in ballots, and the mail-in ballots seem to, as one would expect at this point, the mail-in ballots are leaning heavily towards Joe Biden. So a lot of the pink states, it used to be all pink, they're now light blue, and we and the knot keeps speeding up and slowing down. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of animosity from musicians towards all the other. I got a couple more. I'll get to a couple more. I'm gonna have to dive deep into my well of musician jokes. Should save them all for Maute, but now on that map, Arizona's been called by AP. AP is who we are sticking with. So right now he is 22 away from winning. It looks like he is going to win Michigan. His lead there is at about 38,000 votes, which is where it's been. His and we've watched that lead expand. It looks like it's holding at 38,000. There's still 6% of the vote left to tally. Most of that is going to be mail-in, and if it continues as I think we expect it, he's going to get that. That's going to be 16 electoral votes. That means he will be 6 away from the magic number. That would mean if he wins Nevada, he's done. Alaska would be nice. It would cut it in half, but Alaska's only 3. So Alaska's not going to do it. In fact, Alaska alone isn't everything in play other than Alaska is in excess of the 6. Is 6 or so if he wins Michigan, wins Nevada, he's still going to be 6 short, but it's going to be any remaining state. So let's see. Where's how do you know a drummer is at the door? The knot keeps speeding up and slowing down at random. Yeah. Let's see. What do you call a musician without a girlfriend? Homeless. I one of the reasons I tell all these jokes is because my BA was in philosophy. I had BAs in philosophy and psychology, and the problem with those is in psychology you can't do anything with a BA in psychology. You have to get an MA or more to be employable. With a BA in psychology, you can't do anything with a BA in psychology. You can pretend to do things. You can sit there and say, I know how people work, but in reality, it's fiction. And the problem with a BA in philosophy is, even with an advanced degree, you can't do anything with that. What did the employed philosopher say to the unemployed philosopher? Would you like fries with that? I really wanted to teach philosophy. I loved philosophy. It's just the nature of it and how it uses language and how precision and nuance and how all these things work and how fallacies and how our thinking plays. I think I have been obsessed my entire life with how people think and how people process stuff. And that's why I was interested in both. So nonetheless, I did not pursue a degree in philosophy, but I've noticed that there's a great deal in common with philosophers and musicians, and they both, short of, as a musician, you really hitting the lottery. Most musicians are unemployable and just jamming. That's most philosophers too. You're either teaching or and it's how many musicians just sort of end up teaching if they want to stay in music. At any rate. So let's see. We've got there are so I guess a narrative right now that there are more votes counted in Wisconsin than there are registered voters. I doubt that. We had an error similar to that last night where somebody had suggested that it was 104% of the vote, and no, it was 104% expected voters. So I think I'm gonna keep an eye on that. We've been trying to also follow up on what the Trump campaign is doing there. They've made a couple of wild claims, and we don't know where they're going to settle on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do one more check and see if there is any breaking news or anything that's worth getting into. If not, I think probably best that everybody take a break. I'm tired. Everybody's tired. This map, we don't know when it's going to change. It could change in 15 minutes. It could change in 6 hours. For at least Georgia, it looks like it's not going to change until tomorrow. So I'm going to do one more quick rundown, check everything, see if there's anything we missed, any big stories. Like I said, Trump is threatening a couple of lawsuits, has actually already started one in Michigan, but barring that needing immediate attention, and it looks like looks like the Michigan one may already have been. I don't know how that could have been heard yet, but we'll take a look at it. I don't think they're not going to succeed in Michigan. The vote's going to be counted in Michigan. I think at this point it is likely that Michigan is going to go to. Yeah, he's still ahead by 38,000 in Michigan. I think, given that all that's left is the absentee ballots, that margin is going to expand. Michigan is probably going to go to Biden. If he gets Michigan, if he gets Nevada, which looks cautiously optimistic, then it's one more state. Any state, no, actually, because it's not allowed. The numbers are looking good. So rather than break them down some more, I think let's everybody take a break. We will come back with breaking news if there is anything that is genuinely significant. I think even if he gets Michigan, since we're going to assume he's going to get Michigan, and we're going to assume he gets Nevada, if either of those happen, we probably will not go live with it. If there is anything other than that more significant, we will return. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, and we will follow up with whoever we have available. But at this point, isn't much else to cover. So I think would go out, enjoy your day, spend some time with your family, and we will let you guys know if and when we have anything else salient to cover. So thank you all for joining us, and we will catch up with you guys probably later today. Thank you.